Are you wondering how to ace your upcoming behavioral interview? Stick with me till the end of this video and you won't ever have a difficulty with behavioral interview questions again. I'm Marat from Emmotion, and I've worked in HR for over 12 years, interviewing thousands of candidates and helping many with their interviews. And these are the following points which I'll be sharing with you here. What the behavioral interview is. What is the best way to respond to behavioral questions? An answer formula to any behavioral interview question. And 8 best behavioral questions which you could be easily asked during your interview with sample answers to these questions. If you are not subscribed to my channel yet, then definitely hit the subscribe button and enable the notification bell so you won't miss out my weekly content. Now let me start by explaining what the behavioral interview is. Behavioral interview, also known as competency-based interview or a situational interview, is a technique when a candidate is asked specific questions which describe their past behaviors in concrete situations. To put it even easier, it's all about how you solved a problem in the past. Because the way you behaved in the past during a specific situation or problem will give a certain indication on how you might behave in a similar situation but in the future. That is why most of the hiring managers love asking behavioral questions. And now you must be wondering, what is the best way to respond to these questions? The best way to impress hiring managers during behavioral interviews is to turn your answer into a step-by-step story. Yes, that's right. That's what the interviewer wants to hear. A story about how you solved a problem related to your job in the past. Some of us are really good at storytelling, but some of us are not. Which is why let me share a clear and easy-to-use response formula, which helps you turn your answer into a story. This isn't anything new. You must have heard about the widely used STAR response formula. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. Situation is when you describe a challenging situation from your past and set the scene for the rest of your answer. Task, mentioning the task that you needed to deal with or the problem which had to be solved. Action, what action or actions did you take to overcome the challenge and to solve the problem? You need to be as detailed as possible here, giving a step-by-step description. Result, what was the result of your actions? What happened afterwards? STAR response not only turns your answer into a story, it also gives examples to back your answer, to make it even more powerful. Most of behavioral questions typically start with phrases like, describe a situation when, give an example where, describe a project or idea that, tell me about a time when, etc., etc. Let me show it to you with examples. Here come 8 best behavioral questions with sample answers to these questions. Question 1. Tell me about a time when you handled a difficult situation at work. Think of a challenge and how you dealt with it. So use situation, the first part of your answer, which will set the scene for your example. I would say one of the difficult situations I overcame in my previous position was my lack of direct outside sales experience. I had remote sales and account management experience, but I had never done a targeted sales visit to customers. Task. Discuss the task which you needed to perform and your goal to solve the problem. I've been assigned a few new client accounts and I had to visit them to understand their needs and sell them at least 2 of our new products. Action is the part where you should be dedicating most of your response, explaining in detail which actions you took. It's important to mention what you did, not what your team or someone else did. It was really uncomfortable when I started. I was nervous and I felt out of place. But I kept practicing my sales speech at home and started to become more confident very soon. Due to my knowledge of the industry and of the product, of course, I also learned that I could be a bigger asset to the company in outside sales. Result: explain the results, the consequences of your action. You could also mention what you learned through this experience. By meeting customers face-to-face, I could assess their level of interest and also connect on personal level, which eventually resulted in higher sales. This challenge has now become my favorite part of the job. It's also something that I look forward to doing with your company, if I'm selected for the role, of course. Tell me about a time you showed initiative on the job. Last winter, I was working as an account coordinator, supporting the account executive for an important client at the agency. An account executive had an accident and had to leave 3 weeks before a major campaign pitch. I volunteered to fill in and to orchestrate the presentation by coordinating the input of the creative and media teams. I called an emergency meeting and started a discussion about ad scenarios, media plans, and other roles of various team members in relation to a presentation. I was able to achieve an agreement on 2 priority advertising concepts that we had to pitch, and I drew up a step-by-step plan of how we would present the pitch, which was very well received by the team based on our discussions. The client loved our plan and adopted the campaign. I was promoted to an account executive 6 months later. Tell me about a conflict or disagreement you handled at work. I was working with a colleague from another department. We shared a project. This project also depended on 2 more members of our team. After a few days, he sent us an urgent email accusing us of derailing his project. I had never met him before, so I asked to get together with him for a coffee. I asked him to walk me through his project and the interdependency of his project with our project. Then I walked him through our project and timelines. Once we had the opportunity to communicate our independent priorities, we could begin talking about our shared priorities. We agreed to a timeline that would help us both meet our goals, and the conflict was resolved before it became a major incident. Tell me about a time when you were in charge of a project within a deadline. In my previous role, I was put in charge of the transfer to a new customer relationship management system project, which was added to my usual daily sales calls and responsibilities. The goal was to achieve the migration to the new CRM database completed by the end of the year without letting any of my sales numbers slip below my targets. In order to do that, I had to be very careful about how I managed all of my time. So I blocked off an hour each day on my calendar to dedicate it solely to the CRM migration. During that time, I worked on transferring the data as well as cleaning out old contacts and updating the outdated information. Doing this gave me enough time to work on that project split in portions while still handling my normal tasks. As a result, the transfer was completed 2 weeks ahead of the deadline, and I finished the year 10% ahead of my sales goal. Describe a situation when you showed good customer service skills.
A customer rang up complaining that they waited more than 2 weeks for a reply from our sales team regarding a product request. I needed to address the client's immediate request and find out what went wrong in the usual response procedure. I apologized to the client, got their details, and passed them to our head salesperson in charge of the product, who contacted the client within 1 hour. I investigated why the request hadn't been responded. I discovered that it was a combination of a wrong phone number and a generic email address provided, which was not being checked by the client. I followed up and informed the client about it. I also offered them a discount code on their next order. The client is still ordering from us and recently posted a positive customer service review about us on Google. Give an example of a situation where you had to handle a complaint. I was working at the reception desk in a 4-star hotel at my previous job. An angry client came out of a meeting room straight towards me and started complaining, but not about a hotel. He complained about my manager. He was frustrated that my manager had to miss an important meeting at the last minute. I listened to his concern, got him a seat and a glass of water, and was checking what happened with my manager. Away from the reception desk, I found out that the managing director had been called away on an urgent personal matter. By speaking to colleagues, I was able to source a head of the department who had been partially involved in the project to attend this meeting in my manager's place. The client was relieved and personally thanked me after the meeting, as well as apologizing for his heated words when he first arrived. The client is still one of the hotel's most frequent customers. Tell me about a mistake you've made and how did you handle it? I was working as an intern for an events company and I was responsible for ordering the floral arrangements for an event hosted by a high-profile client. Unfortunately, I mixed up the information from another event and the flowers were delivered to the wrong venue on the other side of the city. I admitted my mistake to my boss. Then I took an early lunch break, drove to the other venue, picked up the flowers and delivered them to the appropriate venue about an hour before the event. The client never knew about my mix-up and my boss was glad how I handled the situation. Describe a time when you dealt with a lot of pressure at work. Due to my position in the company, I report to 5 internal clients who are account managers. I also report to at least 1 external client per each project that I carry. Once I had to carry 12 projects due the same month, which was such a huge pressure and a lot of work, since for all the clients their project is their top priority, and that leaves me with a lot of pressure because I can't sort them by priorities. I'm always optimistic but honest about balancing projects and meeting deadlines. So I raised a hand and requested to be helped by a remote outsourcing team, which we have in another country. I split all the projects in 3 phases and delegated the remote team the first 2 phases, which involved a lot of research, and they could easily do it with my supervision. Thanks to my quick reaction, I managed to overcome this situation, handling the projects on time. My internal and external reports were happy with the job done. I turned 11 out of 12 projects on time, and the 12th project got cancelled by a client. This was a real lesson for me, since I was stressed through the whole month. Now I know how the stress tends to build up, so I started doing yoga and meditation, which helps me a lot.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, please thumb it up and share it with whoever you think it would be beneficial to. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and see you in my next video coming up.